On the European side of the border, Turkey tear down borders and urge migrants to flood Europe. On the Syrian border, they shoot indiscriminately at Syrian civilians, as well as using excessive force against asylum seekers and migrants trying to cross into Turkey. Turkey have no problem pushing migrants into Europe, but are willing to kill to prevent them getting into Turkey. On March 11, 2023, Turkish border guards viciously beat and tortured a group of 8 Syrians who were attempting to cross into Turkey. A man and a boy died in Turkish custody while the others were seriously injured. 6 guards were under investigation. On March the 13th, the Turkish border guard shot and killed a 59-year-old Syrian man who was ploughing his land in an area adjacent to the border. No information has been made available about an investigation into this killing. Since the beginning of 2023, the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights have recorded 11 deaths and 20 injuries along the Syrian-Turkish border caused by Turkish border guards. In early March 2023, Human Rights Watch obtained data from an organisation monitoring hostilities in Syria that documented 277 individual incidents between October 2015 and April 2023. The monitors recorded at least 234 deaths and 231 injuries, the vast majority of which occurred while victims attempted to cross the border. 26 incidents involved children, with at least 20 killed and 15 injured. Significantly, at least 6 people who were not attempting to cross the border were shot dead and another 6 were injured. The organisation requested not to be named out of concern that its humanitarian work could be negatively impacted by Turkish authorities. But where does Turkey's role in destabilising Europe come into this? While Turkish forces were seen using armoured personnel carriers to tear down border fencing with migrants aiding them, migrants are also handed pliers, instructed to start fires to cloud the air with smoke. In March 2020, thousands of migrants suddenly leave Istanbul. There is also an increase of sea migration. A human trafficker in the Turkish town of Ayvacık, across from the Greek island of Lesbos, told Turkish media that Mr. Erdogan gave his permission for him to increase his business. While Turkey is entitled to secure its border with Syria, it must do so in compliance with international law. They also don't help themselves when they're seen weakening the Greek border with force. Between August 2015 and June 2018, Turkey erected a 3-metre high wall topped with razor wire along most of its border with Syria to combat smuggling and irregular border crossings. Since then, Turkish border guards have routinely violently blocked Syrians trying to flee hostilities and dire conditions, shooting at, beating and expelling them back to Syria. In November 2015, April and May 2016, February 2018 and November 2022, Human Rights Watch documented Turkish border guards' use of violence against Syrian and other asylum seekers along the border with Syria. Among the 277 violations along the border monitored by an independent organisation, violations occurred across 80 distinct locations. Most of the fatal incidents were in Idlib, 68.38%, the majority of which is under the control of Islamist armed groups that Turkey has some influence over. The others include Al-Raqqa with 12.39% and Al-Hasakeh with 12.39%, both largely controlled by the Syrian Democratic Forces, a US-backed Kurdish-led armed group, and Aleppo with 6.84%, northern areas of which are under the control of Turkey and Turkish-backed Syrian National Army, or the SDF. The largest number of incidents involving injuries, 43.72%, occurred in areas within Aleppo. Of the 234 deaths and 231 injuries, the data indicates that 225 died and 177 were injured by Turkish border guards using weapons, and 9 died and 54 were injured due to physical assault at the hands of Turkish border guards. In 2020, tens of thousands of migrants arrived at the Greek-Turkish border along the Evros River, with the migrants reaching the border through white buses and taxis. They were aided by the Turkish armed forces. A Turkish armoured car attempted to cross and break the border fence with no success. The Greek police forces, with the help of the citizens, managed with fire extinguishers, tear gas, loudspeakers, as well as repairing the fence to prevent the invasion. This continues to happen, and there is little media attention on Turkey's involvement both in destabilising Europe by undermining Greece's border protection, but also consistently violating a number of human rights abuses on Syrians and other asylum seekers.